All right, everybody. Happy early new year to everybody out there listening and joining us here on YouTube. Before we get into 2025, we got to talk about these Celtics. They split a mini series with the Indiana Pacers. A little bit of trouble brewing. We're going to talk about what to be concerned about heading into 2025, as well as, of course, we're going to hit you with our in or out segment of the week. We got our stat of the week, and we'll drop some New Year's resolutions for you as well. This is Green with them, but we got a lot to get into here, so let's stop messing around. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today, as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. Greg, happy early 2025 to you here. How you feeling? 2024. We're just about a day and a half away here from putting a bow on 2024 somehow.
I'm feeling pretty good, feeling old, definitely feeling old. We're gonna get into New Year's resolutions later, but there's one thing that I definitely want to change in my life, and that's just like how old I feel on a daily basis. Maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe it's me telling myself that I'm only 35 instead of I am 35. I'm
hmm
like just changing
All
the
about
way
your
I
your
look at
pers
the
change your
number.
perspectives, right? It's the
Yeah.
it's the Joe Mazzulla, Jason Tatum gets to deal with criticism. He doesn't have to deal with it, he gets to deal with it, right? It's changing your perspective on everything.
Exactly. So that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it right now. But with a lot to talk about, and excited to be here with you.
Yeah, so let's get into it here. This is our last show of 2024. So let's get into the most recent updates here with the Celtics that we got to get to. And the Celtics here coming off a split of a mini series with the Indiana Pacers. Those pesky Indiana Pacers that just continue to seem to give the Celtics trouble. They blow out the Pacers on Friday night, who were coming off a pretty brutal West Coast trip, and just might have been one of those schedule type losses. Just really a game that was never certainly in question. Massive night from the Sports Illustrated NBA Player of the Year, Jaylen Brown, in that one, 44 points. But looking at last night's game, Greg, here on Sunday, we're recording this on a Monday morning. Pacers beat the Celtics 123 to 114. A game in which the Celtics, just never really had control of this one, tried to claw their way back in, got really close in the fourth quarter, and then things slipped away really, really quickly. There's a few different things I think we can talk about here that are starting to become alarming. But overall, Greg, this December has been very, very average for the Celtics. They're 7-6 on the month right now. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They're now at 22-9 on the season, several games behind the Cleveland Cavaliers, and have actually probably really put themselves more in that. Or not even have. They certainly have put themselves more in that Knicks tier of their place in the Eastern Conference. So when you look at last night's game as kind of a representation of what this past month of basketball has been, what do you think jumps out to you the most?
I think just the inconsistency with who's on the court. The Celtics only have one five-man lineup that has played more than 100 minutes this season. They have one. Um, the Kristaps Porzingis starting five, I think it's played 85, and then the Al Horford starting five has played like 150 minutes or something like that. And then after that, they don't really have any lineups that have played, I think, more than I think it's 50 minutes for the season. And I think that's the biggest thing with this team is they need to get everybody healthy. They've held out Drew Holiday over the last few games with the shoulder injury. And I think getting him back in the lineup is going to be a big deal. Porzingis, it is what it is with the guy, man. He just like can't get healthy, can't stay healthy. But we were lucky to have him in December, right? And a
Mhm.
little bit in November, just because we
Right.
weren't expecting to have him until February. But just like getting him back and then him being out, it's just been too much inconsistency for what the team's identity is. And I think that's the biggest thing that I see out of the Celtics right now is way too much inconsistency.
Yeah, and so you mentioned it. No KP, no Holiday in this game. And for the Celtics, like you said, you just went through all the numbers of the different lineups they've had and not being able to have their full complement of players. And I mean, this is a theme throughout the end. Like this isn't the Celtics aren't the only team going through this, right? Like most teams go through this, and most teams that have the best regular season records typically stay healthy, right? Like you look at a team like Cleveland, their top four have mostly been healthy this year. Last year, that wasn't the case. They ended up in that 4-5 matchup, right? So that is kind of the way the NBA season goes. And we talked a lot last year about the Celtics getting kind of the health boost, right? Like KP was able to give you 57 games before the injuries started to pile up as we got to the postseason. You got nearly 70 games from Drew Holiday. You got 65 games from Al Horford. You got 70 plus games from your top three in Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. And so this is not something that's necessarily new to most teams in the NBA, but this is new to the Celtics. I mean, even last night, Derek White was asked about this stretch. And this, to a degree, speaks to the good fortunes that Derek White has brought to this team. So this is the toughest stretch they probably had since he's been on the Celtics. Think about that. They're 7-6. Yeah, it's not great. That to be your toughest stretch in 3.5 years now, or basically 3 full years for Derek White and the Celtics. Like that is pretty impressive. But to your point, like the Celtics, in my mind, it just feels like they got to find new ways to win without having their top complement of guys. Because KP, like you said, your response said it all. We were expecting not to have him until maybe February, and just I don't know, man. It's just kind of a hope and a prayer. One of our friends was texting us yesterday, like, what can we do? And we're really handcuffed here at the deadline by the CBA as far as making moves. So a lot of it's just kind of a hope and a prayer that KP's healthy at the right time. And so I think then it becomes knowing that KP is going to be whatever KP is. Yeah, it's going to be nice to have Holiday back. I mean, Holiday's 34. It's not exactly like, that we can always expect him to be available. Al's 37, 38 years old. Like those are three guys that you're going to have games without them. And I think the Celtics need to start figuring out what is this team without them, because I don't think you can't play the same way, I think, when you have and when you don't have those guys.
For sure. And just looking at like a few teams around the league, you mentioned the Knicks and the Cavs. So the Knicks starting five, do you know how many minutes the Knicks starting five has
It's
played
insane.
together?
I haven't looked at it recently. I know as of a couple of weeks ago, they were just in total minutes were like 200 minutes ahead of whoever was in second place.
They've played 539 minutes together.
What's the second place team in minutes? Because I know they're miles ahead of whoever's in second.
Let me see.
I feel like it might be like a Rockets lineup or something. Because
All
I remember
teams,
at least a
change those
while ago, I looked back and it was
filters.
just like, oh, Tibbs and Ime lead the league in 5-man units playing together. That's the least shocking stat I've seen in a while.
Yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. Hold on one second. Let me just pull it up.
But I
La
mean,
la
the
la
Knicks, to your
la.
point,
Okay,
they've
so
been
we
having a
have
tremendous December. Go ahead.
we have the Knicks starting five, 539 minutes. The Rockets starting five, 403 minutes. The T-Wolves starting five, 379 minutes. And then we have the Hawks starting five, 271. And the Kings new starting five with Monk in there, 249. It's
Think
interesting
about that
looking at that.
disparity, though, man. That's crazy. The 500, then down to the Rockets and 400, and then there's I think what is there, only 3 teams above 350 basically is what we're looking
Yeah.
at here. Everyone else is below
3
that.
teams
Yeah.
above 350. 3 teams above 375 if you want to like be a little bit more exact. But 2 of those 3 teams, the Knicks and the T-Wolves, are teams that need to figure out how to incorporate new pieces, right? And I think that's one of the things with the Celtics is they know they pretty much brought back the exact same roster as last year. They know what they have. They know that there's a switch that they can flip on or off depending on who's there. And I think that's the biggest thing right now with this team in December. That switch has been flipped on and off multiple times. Just look at the Pacers matchup. We had back-to-back games with them. You mentioned the Pacers are coming off a tough trip. And I think the line for that first game was like minus 12.5 for the Celtics. I didn't look at it the second game, but I would imagine it was a lot lower than minus 12.5, even after a 40-point blowout, just because it's not, it's not a schedule loss. And the Pacers then had something to play for. And you could tell last night with the Pacers, they came out with like a fuck you attitude. The first game is not what this is, right?
Mhm.
Halliburton was balling last night. I cannot stand that guy, but he was out there balling last night.
What is it about him that irritates you so much?
He just seems like a fucking loser. like if I was hanging out with him, he'd be one of those guys that I'd be like, dude, you're not as cool as you think you are. Like you're really not as cool as you think you are. Like I hate his style. I hate his jump shot. I hate his face. Something about his face. It seems like a little bit of a mouth breather.
Last year, he's got the pretty boy front runner type, attitude that I think.
Yeah, but he's also got like a little bit of a mouth breather look to him. You know what I mean? Like, bro, breathe through your fucking nose.
Is that why he has multiple voices? Just different breed.
Doesn't he does he ever close his fucking mouth? I just hate. I like if I saw that guy at a club, like back in my clubbing days, I'd be like, ooh, I don't like this guy. And if he comes anywhere near like the girls that we're hanging out with, like there's gonna be a fight.
Oh, he's coming for them white women at BC, you know that. But anyways, Tyrese Halliburton and just in general, the Pacers did come out with a different attitude. I thought about it again. Nembhard. He's a guy that just continues to give the Celtics problems. He didn't play on that Friday night game. Played last night, Sunday, 17, 8 and 8. Just feels like a guy that gets up for this matchup against the Celtics. And, the Pacers win this season series now. They go up. They take it 2-1. We mentioned earlier about, the Celtics having lost to them earlier in the season. They blow them out Friday night. But the Pacers are a team that just continue to be a thorn in the Celtics side. And, Greg, kind of going into the depth issues here with the Celtics, and in the depth meaning that, when we don't have all of our full complement of guys, you can tell Joe's trying to figure out what he can get out of certain players. Luke, we know, is pretty reliable to step up when needed, but of course there's a certain ceiling to that. So it's how do we get, players that can help push us above whatever that ceiling is. And that's where, Neemias Queta, and specifically I want to talk a little bit about Jordan Walsh, got some chances in these last couple of games. Neemias, we've talked plenty about. We know there can be a high ceiling, but it's also nights like last night where I think he had 3 fouls in about 4 minutes, it felt like. And it was just like every, one of those things where every decision he was making was probably the wrong decision, just about. And Jordan Walsh is a guy I think that he's getting a little bit more opportunity here with more time with Holiday out, just trying to find some other type of spark. He had his best NBA game Friday night, where basically set every single season career high that he has. Not that there were large barriers to overcome. Last night, he was okay. Didn't make too much of an impact. What have you seen from Jordan Walsh? Because that's where, once again, the Celtics are very handcuffed at the deadline. That's going to be a guy where maybe you're hoping to get a little bit extra out of. I don't know. Did you see anything that gave you hope in that in this past couple games?
Not really. Not in terms of making an impact in a big game. Definitely not. Maybe as a depth piece throughout this season, long term, I still like his potential as a wing defender. He's got good instincts. He attacks the glass. He's shooting the three with more confidence now. I think he's got a pretty high basketball IQ. He knows when to cut. He knows when to corner crash. Solid defensive rotations and all that. My thing with the team in general is just like they're missing that Robert Williams piece. Man, that like really special athletic defender that can guard the basket.
So
go ahead.
So this brings me to a point with Jordan Walsh, and it's not quite going to fill the void that you're talking about with Robert Williams, but that kind of freakish athleticism. This is one thing that really stood out to me last night that, and you said something about Jordan Walsh that I totally agree with. I think he has a pretty high basketball IQ, and he's doing his best to fit in without kind of messing things up. I kind of want him to recklessly use his athleticism a little bit more. That was one thing that I kind of noticed to me. Like there was at one point last night, I think it was early in the second quarter, he had a lane, and I kind of want to see, like, just try to go fucking dunk on somebody. Like try to use your athleticism in those moments. Try to, and this is tough because you're asking a young guy to play smart, but also selectively play reckless. Like that's a really tough ask of somebody. But I think that's one area where if Jordan Walsh was to be able to make an impact right now, is by being a guy who seemingly has a ton of athleticism, but I feel like he's very reserved because he wants to play with the smart IQ and make the right choices. And for the same reasons that I probably get frustrated with Kata, because he's a little bit, like a baby deer out there at times. Like there's times where Walsh is almost too reserved that I want to see him try to go do something that you can only do if you're one of those top tier athletes, because that's something the Celtics kind of need.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying, Will, is they need to lock him in a room, maybe the film dungeon, and just play on loop tape of Aaron Nesmith.
That's not bad, not a bad idea. Like
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of what he, when you look at what Aaron Nesmith became in Indiana, who by the way, for all the Celtics being out with injuries, no Nesmith, who's a starter for the Pacers, and no Obi Toppin last night as well. But that is kind of what you'd like to see a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. But like going back to the Robert Williams thing, like this is what I always used to say with Rob whenever we would play teams that were similar to the Pacers. Like the Hornets were always the team that I used as an example. When Robert Williams was on the court versus off the court against a team like the Hornets, there were just like a bunch of athletic guys. It was just such a stark contrast. And not being able to see Porzingis, and not that he's the same type of athlete that Robert Williams is, but we haven't really seen Porzingis much against the Pacers. Like I don't know how many games Porzingis played against the Pacers. He didn't play in the playoffs last year, so like I don't really know what we would look like against that team. I don't know what type of impact he'd really have because it's such an up and down game with the Pacers, and you kind of got to wonder if there's a mindset the Celtics need to shift into when you play a team like the Pacers, where like it's going to be a track meet, but like how can you make that? How can you make it like the right races for you to run against that team, right? Like you don't want to run a full 100-meter dash against the Pacers because you're just probably you're there's going to be a very slim margin, right, where they might be able to win that race versus you win, depending on the day, depending on the wind, whatever it is. And like, can we maybe drag it out to a 1,600-meter race? Like, just make it a little bit slower, play at your pace, because when it's a mad dash up and down the court, there's something about playing the Pacers where I feel like you're playing right into their hands. And it felt like the Celtics were just trying to keep up with them the entire game last night. And even when they got the game to 2 in the fourth quarter, I didn't feel like we really had a chance in that game. As crazy as it sounds, I was like, this doesn't feel like a Celtics night because of the pace. Like we were just exhausted by the fourth quarter. And yeah, man, I think the Pacers have a real tough recipe for the Celtics to go up against.
Yeah, the Pacers do a really good job of no pun intended, setting the pace against the Celtics, right? They just feel very in control of that. And to your point of the Celtics cutting that to the lead to 105, 103. It's funny, there was 7:38 left in that, and probably about a minute and a half before I was like, not the Celtics tonight. I was like, wait a minute, well, there's still 9 minutes left. Like, I guess they still have a chance. And they cut it. And it was like, okay, maybe they can make something here. And then very quickly from 7:38 to 4:14, that game goes from 118 to 103.
13-0 run.
And for a guy that never throws in the towel, who also agreed with you they didn't really have a chance, was Joe Mazzulla last night. Joe Mazzulla sent the reserves to the table with around 3:30 left to go at 118, 103. Celtics get a 2, and there's a timeout by the Pacers right afterwards. And Joe, this was kind of an interesting choice. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Joe doesn't actually go with the full reserves, brings back the start or the closing group minus JB for Jordan Walsh for about another minute. Then he calls it. I don't know. That was a very weird sequence to me that I just happened to notate as to. I was very confused as to where Joe Mazzulla's mind was. And Joe Mazzulla's a guy that, we used to be screaming, Joe, it's okay, man. Put the reserves in. Like, we got to save some of these guys. That was a quick trigger for Joe. And then he kind of walked it back. But I don't know. It was an interesting sequence. What'd you make of it?
Well, what happened, it was 118, 103 or 118, 105, whatever it was. And then we got the 2-point basket. And I think
made it 118, 105. Yeah.
Yeah. In his head, he was like, maybe there's still a chance. And I think he would have left them all out there. But I think Carlisle saw that he had reserves in and was like, I want this game to be over.
Oh,
so
100%.
He called the timeout.
That was 100% why Carlisle called that timeout. He saw all the reserves and was like, let's see if he's just gonna throw in the towel here. I want to get this win.
Yeah, and I thought that was a pretty interesting move by Carlisle there. And JB was exhausted. Like when they cut to JB walking to the bench. You there?
Yeah, okay. Now I can hear you. Yeah, you
Okay.
just froze for the last like minute plus.
Oh, no worries. Okay.
So it's right around the 20-minute mark, a little after 20 minutes. And you had just said, yeah, JB was exhausted walking to the bench.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I didn't freeze on my end. It was you didn't freeze at all. But yeah, we can just move on to another segment.
Okay. All right, let's see. All right, so I'm trying to think of how we should cut this to make it make sense.
I mean, the audio is going to be fine on my end because it was still recording and there was
Okay.
no.
So what did you end with, so I can move on to like something else? What was the last thing
Let's
you
just
said?
say let's move on to our let's put a bow on the Celtics Pacers. Let's move on to our stat of the week or whatever.
Okay. All right. Well, let's put a bow on the Celtics Pacers for right now. Updated home record on the season for the Celtics, now 12-6 as a home record, went 37-4 last season. So definitely some things that we'll keep an eye on here as we head into 2025 and what's going to be a really tough January, which unsurprisingly, Joe Mazzulla is very excited for this team to be struggling and heading into a tough month ahead. But with that, Greg, let's transition here because we'll have plenty to talk about here later in the week as well. Let's get to our in or out segment of the week. I'll hand the ball to you here. What you got for us with in or out?
Couple things. So I'm gonna go on Christmas gifts, just like in general. Couple Christmas gifts that I got. So my favorite gift was this like boxing hand-eye coordination gift, where you strap something to your head and tied to that is like a little string, and then there are balls that you can punch. So like just imagine that. Like those
I
paddle
think I've seen
the
this on Instagram somewhere.
probably, yeah. And so my favorite part about this is, I mean, I was playing with, I'll show you a video later. I should have uploaded it so everybody could see. But the moment Danielle gave it to me, like she gave it to me as the first gift. And I was like, oh, this was a big mistake giving this to me as the first gift because I'm just going to want to play with this. Like, she gave me like
Yeah.
all these sentimental gifts afterwards. And I didn't care. I cared about them, but I didn't because I just wanted to play with this little boxing apparatus.
Yeah.
And I had a great time with it. So I'm in on like my amateur boxing career, and I'm just starting with this little hand-eye coordination thing. Maybe I'll wear it for the audience next time, and you guys can kind of rate my skills. But it was a lot of fun. Danielle told me that the ad said, "Does your boyfriend have ADHD? If he does, he's going to be playing with this for hours." And I was like, "Yeah, that's about right."
It's literally giving a cat a ball of yarn is
Yeah.
basically what this is in human form. But no, I like that. I've seen a couple of those different types of boxing ones. I think I've seen the one that you're talking about where it's just like the ball that you're following around. For a second, I thought you were going to say there's one I've seen where it's there's like, I think there's different like buttons that you almost like put on the wall, and you have to like hit the different buttons as they glow up. So I didn't know
That
if it was
that
going to
one's
be that,
cool.
but I think I've seen a couple different versions of what you're saying. But I like that you got literally the kid in you is still there, where it's, oh, this is awesome, and then whatever other sentimental gifts were to follow, those can be looked at on the 26th. That's not needed right now. Right
Yeah.
now, what we need is the cool ball of yarn that I just got to play with.
Exactly. And then I also got some Celtics swag. So I got some Celtics socks. I got some Celtics Crocs, which are really cool. And so Danielle's aunt Trish, shout out Trish. She got me some Crocs and she got James some matching Celtics Crocs. So that's going to be really
Nice.
cute. We're going to wear those anytime the Celtics play. And then one other thing I just wanted to say, this wasn't necessarily a gift, but Danielle's family is visiting right now and they're big on just like records and playing games. So like we got records going. We got like 10 new records that we're playing on record player. We were playing this board game last night, and I'll spare you like all the details of the board game, but it's this game called Wingspan, which is
Okay.
like a bird game, and it's like all these different birds, and you have to like build different like colonies of birds, I guess, and you like collect eggs and all this stuff. It's really cool. We'll play it sometime next game night that we do. But what I wanted to talk about was just like being in on that feeling, like the first time you play a new game and you realize it's super addicting and you just want to play it all the time. Just like when we used to have our Catan
Mm,
parties and tournaments where everybody was just obsessed with that because it was the first time experiencing this game. And then everybody
yeah.
was just like, this is crack. Like, I just want to play this game all the time. I want to understand all the intricacies of it. And this is how I feel about Wingspan right now. At first, I was the first half of the Celtics game. That's when the game was being taught to me, and I was not paying attention to how the game was being taught to me. I was watching the Celtics, and I could tell
Right.
everybody was getting frustrated with me. So I paused
Yeah.
the game at halftime, and I was like, "Okay, I'm here. I'm ready to learn." In the
Yeah.
first, I don't know, 2.5 turns through, I had no idea what was going on, and I was like, "Man, like I feel really stupid because like I should
Is it an
understand this
intricate
game."
game? Like, because like, so I was talking with my family over this past holiday, because I have another game that I'm gonna bring up that kind of similar, but it's like super simple and super easy to learn very quickly. But like we were saying how it's nice to sometimes have those games where it's like a card game that's like you can pick it up like super quickly. You do like two quick turns, you're like, oh, everyone gets how to play. Perfect. We're ready to roll.
Mhm.
But then there's games like Catan, where you mentioned before, where it's like Catan, you really just have to like explain. It's a lot of explanation, and you kind of got to play it 2 or 3 times before you really feel like you understand the strategy and how things work, what you can't do, what you can't do. Is that how Wingspan is? Like, is it that intricate, or like what's the level of
Yeah.
intricacy we're working with here?
It's about as intricate as Catan. The only thing is that you can't trade resources. So, like, for example, every turn you can do a couple things. You can either like get more birds, you can get eggs, or you can get bird feed, right?
Hmm.
And then like some of the bird feed, it's like there's a cherry, there's a rat, there's a fish, there's like all these different resources that the birds can eat. And the birds that you have in your hand or on the board can only eat certain resources, right? So if like you want to play a bird, you're gonna have to. I'm explaining the game now.
Yeah, I
You're
know.
gonna have to
We went from I'm not going to explain the game to the entire game.
yeah. So like say I have this like this bird and it's like a super rare bird. So like that bird is worth 10 points, right? But I need to have like a specific set of resources to play that bird, right? And there's also different so if I haven't bought bird feed, I might have this dope bird, but I can't play it unless I buy bird feed and there's like
Mhm.
die that have different bird feed on it. So as I'm trying to buy bird feed, I might not be able to get the right amount of resources to play that bird. And if I don't play that bird, it's not worth anything, right? So I
Yeah, quick question for you. Can we just create our own board game? Because I feel like every board game now is just like this is like it is. They're so similar, but just use different terms. Like, can we not just make a Green with Envy board game where you have, oh, it's cool, you have a Jason Tatum card, but you need Joe Mazzulla minutes to be able to play it. Like, I feel
I
like
love it.
we could. I feel like we could do these type of resources. You need, oh, you need like you have
Wait,
a
wait,
player
wait, wait,
injured.
wait, wait, wait.
Cool, you need
Wait,
3 Nick Sangs to be able to play.
I was gonna say, look, like maybe let's stop talking about it so people don't steal this idea because I really like this concept. Danielle and I were talking about this, and we were like, "How do you become a board game creator? Like, how is that somebody's
Yeah.
job? Is it just like you create your own game and then like somehow it catches on? Because this Wingspan game has like an app, and you can play this online, so it's like super popular.
Yeah.
Apparently, like
And
Danielle's
you can
sister
get
was like,
anything listed on Amazon, right? So we need to find someone to help us create it and get, like, it set up, but, like,
and then
getting
mass
it listed on
produce it.
Amazon would be pretty easy. Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I think that's something interesting that we should look into
Okay,
more
let's
and
quit our jobs. Let's create the greatest Celtics board game ever.
Well,
Maybe
well,
this
well,
is
here's another thing. Just like so, I was telling you there was a card game that we started playing, and we could only play it limitedly, and you'll find out why here in a second. But found out there's this card game that apparently has become popular, called Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. Have you heard of this? In
taco, cat, goat,
Goat
cheese, pizza.
Cheese
I have
Pizza.
not. No.
It's so simple. This is one of those games where it's so simple, anyone can pick it up and play. It's a really great game, except there's a lot of like smacking to collect cards.
Ugh,
And one of the words is taco. So not great for my house with my dog. That didn't go over super well, but the game itself, super fun. But it's really just like a card game where you flip over different cards. They have these different animations on them, and you're going taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza. And if you say the same word with the same picture, you have to smack it down, smack your hand down, and whoever's last takes all the cards. And then basically you keep doing this until someone runs out of cards altogether. And there's a few like wild cards mixed in.
so all of the
Very simple
cards have
game,
one of
very
those
addicting.
things on them.
Exactly. Yep. So it's just, and then there's like other versions of it where it's like, oh, hey, the holiday version, Santa, cookie, candy cane, I don't know, 2 other things, whatever. And then there's a couple wild cards in there where you have to like if a narwhal comes up, you have to like put your hands over your head and then go down and
Mm,
smack it. So it's like remember how we used to play Egyptian rat screw? It's a little bit of
yeah.
like Egyptian rat screw with like putting your hand in the middle and then just trying to run it. Very simple, very addicting. We could also make that a game with Celtics names. Super simple, super easy. Like there's so many ways that I feel like we could just adapt little
You know
games
who we need to
and
bring
and,
into
and really
this?
make some money.
You know who we need to bring into this?
Who?
Guess one of our friends that I think would absolutely love this idea and would have the time and energy to maybe help us collaborate on this game.
I honestly don't know. Who do you got?
Mark.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. That was not who I was thinking of. Okay. I like that. Well, Mark, if you're listening out there, hit us up, get us on the dial. We'll check in with you here. But I
Can I
like
say
that.
one
That
thing
was
though?
yeah,
Can I
yeah,
say one
quick.
thing? I don't like games where you have to smack the pile.
They can get you can get a little you can get injured doing that. But I actually like it. I think it makes it a little bit more
You play
exhilarating,
with
a little
someone
bit
that's
fun.
got long nails and you ruin your hand for 2 weeks.
Hey, it's a little bit more dangerous, man. You gotta be built for that. If you're not built for it, you ain't built for it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
some
it's
people
true.
ain't.
I
So
hated playing Egyptian Rascal with you guys because I feel like you and Gara would always smack the shit out of my hand, and I was like, God, I freaking hate this.
hey man, gotta have that dog in you. You know what I'm saying? Some people don't. Some people do. All right, my in or out for the week. I'm just gonna go. I'm in on everything. Victor Wembanyama, Wemby going to the park and playing chess. How fucking cool was
Pretty
that?
cool.
Like that's
Pretty cool.
unbelievable. Like like we talked about how I'm so sick of all these ratings talks and who's the future of the NBA. Fucking Victor Wembanyama's the future of the NBA, and this dude is the freaking man. Like he's out here. Like I remember I saw him say like who's at I think it's like I'm not familiar with all of New York. It's like Washington
Washington
Park or
State Park,
something.
maybe.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then like 30 seconds later, we get a text from one of our friends, Liptak, who was showing he was literally in the park just playing. And it's pouring. It was like raining out too. Like, really shitty day. And you get this cool crowd of people around. And I get he's 7'5" and a freak and he's from France. And I'm sorry, the guy's relatable. The guy feels like he gives a shit. The guy, I don't give a I don't care. He's not from the US. Like I'm all in on anything and everything having to do with Victor Wembanyama. I think he couldn't be more perfect for part of as LeBron, by the way, turns 40 today. So as LeBron, as Steph, who continues to do unreal. Do you see Steph Curry shot versus the Suns the other night?
Oh my God.
That was insane.
It looked like a
That was
glitch.
unbelievable. Yeah, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do that. But as as LeBron and Steph and KD start to age out, like we're gonna be fine, guys. Like Jason Tatum's here, Victor Wembanyama's here, Anthony Edwards here. It's fucking fine. We're gonna be okay. Uh, Victor Wembanyama makes me feel good about everything. I am in on everything to do with Victor Wembanyama.
No, I totally agree with that. Like, he's the man. Everyone talks about, oh, we need an American star. We need an American star. It's a global game. It's a global
Yeah,
game. Like, NBA is going to be fine. If you care that much about like American TV ratings and who's watching in America, sure. But football is America's game. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's going
yeah,
to watch football over basketball when it really matters. So as long as the game is good globally, and that's what the NBA really cares about, is growing the game globally, having those international stars is going to be good for the overall growth of the game. And then you're going to have people like, you know what? I really don't want all these international stars coming in and like taking our shine. So maybe that's going to spark something in American youth basketball. And then there's also guys coming up like AJ and Cooper
Cooper
Flag, and I'm
Flag.
sure there's a
Yeah,
million other
the
kids that
Boozer,
have
the
been
Boozer
studying
twins are
Instagram
coming up
trainer
as well
videos for the
too.
last
Ape
decade.
Bailey, like there's we're gonna be fine. I'm not worried about that. Yeah, I think the league's fine where it's going. All right, let's go to our stat of the week here, Greg. We're talking about big men, so I'll take this one here first. Last night, not a great night to be honest for Al Horford. Last night, 1 of 10 from the 3-point line, but that 1-3 did put him one place ahead of Larry Bird all time in most career 3-point field goals made for the Boston Celtics. Now at 650 with Ray Allen in his sights at 798. We'll probably have to play another. Well, that will take us into next year if he's ever going to have a chance to catch Ray Allen, which we'll have to see about that for Al Horford. But one of the things this always just reminds me, there's two things. Number one, Antoine Walker's fourth in this list. Still love to see my guy Twan get a little bit of shine for being so far ahead of his time, right or wrong, for how many threes that he was taking. He's still fourth on that list. And you think about just, how many more threes are being taken today, and eventually he's going to be wiped off that list. Just like, I mean, it's crazy that Ray Allen and Reggie Miller are now like third and sixth on the all-time list. Just, after everything that we've been through, it's going to be crazy to see where all these names end up long term. But the other part for Al Horford, there's always reminds me, man, I still think it's to this day one of the coolest modern NBA stories is him and Brook Lopez not getting left behind in the change of the NBA, going the ways of the Roy Hibberts, or even becoming, journeyman like Brooks' brother Robin, or like DeAndre Jordan, who for the last 5-6 years has been just kind of floating around as a guy on the bench. Like, the way that Al Horford and Brook Lopez adapted their games to become meaningful contributors to eventual NBA champions and prolong their careers from guys who just did not do anything close to what the modern NBA was. They were complete down low post players on both sides of the ball. And for both of them to be able to expand their games, to be able to guard on the perimeter, to be able to protect the rim at times, and then be able to space it on the 3-point on the offensive side with the 3-point line. I just think it's some of the coolest, two of the coolest stories of adapting to change rather than being having their careers taken from it. So I always just think that's cool. Anytime you see Al's name continue to move up, I got a soft spot for Al. So if Al does something, usually that's where my stat of the week or my shout out is going to go to.
Yeah, it's a great stat. I'm gonna steal this directly from Dick Lipe. Um, so I was tracking Peyton Pritchard's like um games with more than 3-pointers, 4 3-pointers, 5 3-pointers. It's just gotten to the point where he's broken all of his like previous records. So now you're comparing him against the rest of the league, right? So I was gonna do the research, and I was like, maybe Dick Lipe's already done this research, and he had. So Peyton Pritchard had his 14th game this season of at least 5 3-pointers, which is more than anyone else in the association, starter or reserve. There are still 50 games left. So he's now 4 games away for the Celtic record for the most games of at least 5 3-pointers, which is 18, set by Jason Tatum in back-to-back years in 21-22 and 22-23. So Peyton Pritchard is probably going to lead the league in 3-pointers this year on average per game, and he's going to break most Celtic 3-point records this year, which is just bananas considering where he was at the beginning of last season and whether he might. Are we going to trade Peyton Pritchard? Is he going to even play? Like, should he play more? Should he not play more? It's great to see that he's actually balling out to this degree. My only concern with Peyton Pritchard is, are you going to win 6th man of the year? when DeAndre Hunter is having the best season of his career, averaging 20 points per game off the bench for the Hawks. They seem to like him coming off the bench. And if the Hawks continue to play at the level that they're playing, it's going to be, I think, neck and neck between Peyton Pritchard and DeAndre Hunter. So he better hope that DeAndre Hunter plays so well that the Hawks decide to put him into the starting lineup and move Reese Shea to the bench. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a really tight race down the stretch.
Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting one to keep an eye on there. And then just, Peyton Pritchard continues to impress. We talked about a mini slump for him on Christmas. Last 2 games certainly busted out of that again, because that's just kind of what Peyton Pritchard has been doing. And so you mentioned he's got 14 games you said of 5+
Yep.
threes, which is it's a crazy number.
Yeah.
What's your best guess as to what he gets to? So they're 32 games into the season right now or so.
50 games left.
Yeah, 50 games left. How much? What would you venture to guess? He's already at 14. What would be your? You said the record was 18 by Tatum.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
we
I'd say
assume
20.
he's
He's
going to get
definitely
4
going to break
more.
it. Yeah, he's
Yeah, we
definitely. I'm
assume
going to go
that's pretty
25.
safe.
I'm going to go 25. So
25.
last season, just as reference for everybody, he had 7 games with 5 or more 3-pointers. Peyton
Okay,
Pritchard.
so he's doubled
So he's
that
already doubled that.
already in 32 games, and he's
Mhm.
got 50 to go. Man, yeah, I think, 30's in play here, right? 30 is certainly in play. 16 more times in the next 50 games. Like if Peyton Pritchard, who's a guy that, seemingly stays pretty healthy, and listen, Celtics are going to continue. And this is, I had some stats on this. I'm going to save it for next time here, where, Celtics shoot as many threes as they do. They're getting into some troubling territory here with their percentages, which I think we can get into. He's not one of them. He's one of the few guys that I don't care what the percentages are as a team. Peyton Pritchard as an individual, keep chucking threes. That's the way that we're going to win with him. So he's someone not concerned about with. So yeah, I think 35 plus. That just sounds insane. 30 games of 5+ made threes, fully on the table for Peyton Pritchard. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. I like that one. Him versus DeAndre Hunter. That will be a battle here down the stretch. And then quickly here, before we leave, Greg, I mentioned this is the last show for us here of 2024. Next time that we'll be coming to you, it will be in the future in 2025. So very quickly here, give me a New Year's resolution. This can be either for the Celtics, this can be for yourself, whichever way you want to take it. Give me a New Year's resolution.
This is for the audience. I'm speaking directly to you, whoever is listening right now. Yes, you. New Year's resolution for you: bring a friend, bring a group of friends to the pod. We've been doing this pod for 4 years now. We want to continue to grow the pod, and in order to do that, we just need more people listening. We need more eyes on the YouTube. We need more people leaving reviews for us. It's annoying to hear, I'm sure, leave 5 stars. I always hear that on pods, but we really need your support to help us continue to grow the show. So we appreciate all the support that you've given us, but please, I'm speaking directly to you. Leave us a review or bring a friend to the show. Make sure that if you're talking Celtics, you just be like, oh, you guys listen to Green with Envy? We're on Bleacher Report now. We're on Blue Wire. We're bringing in all these guests, and we love doing it, but we can do it better with more support. So I'm speaking to you. New Year's resolution for the audience: bring a friend.
Yeah, I echo that. And, we try to leave out some of the times that we should be saying, sitting here for 5 minutes, hey, subscribe, download, leave reviews. And we know you guys don't want to hear that shit. We know you want to hear about the Celtics. You want to hear about Greg and I, and we are pretty fascinating. So you want to hear about all the fascinating things that we got going on in our lives. And so we try to leave that out of it, but it is really important. So to that, number one, we appreciate those of you that are here, and those of you that want to see us continue to do more and bring you more content. Please, as Greg said, just bring a friend. Make sure you get those that are listening, subscribe, leave comments, leave ratings. All of that will really help us as we continue to build the show. My New Year's resolution, just I'm gonna keep it go right back to the beginning of the show. Get healthy, Celtics. We just got to get healthy. I mean, I keep saying it, and I think you start to see it with the trade market. Some of these second round picks the Celtics aren't just going to throw them away to go trade Jaden Springer for Torrey Craig. That's not going to make any sense. And I don't think there's many moves out there without the Celtics getting real crazy to go ahead and bring somebody in that's going to really drastically change the composition of what this roster is. And so we're kind of on a hope and a prayer that KP's healthy at the right time, that Drew Holiday, who, I would say has had a little bit of a below average season for what we'd expect from Drew Holiday overall, that he gets healthy and gets back to being the Drew Holiday that we're going to need if the Celtics are going to repeat, because we all know what's looming in the offseason, and it's probably not going to be running it back with the same team. So if this team wants to be able to defend that title and do it properly, got to get healthy and got to get a little bit of luck. So we got lucky the Leprechaun. We need to get lucky 2025. Let's hope that we get that back. We had it last year. Let's hope that we get it back here going forward. Greg, that's going to do it for this episode, man. Last episode of 2024. Get final thoughts. 2024. What you got for us?
Ooh, that's tough, man. That's tough.
Not to put you on the spot or anything, but you should probably make it good.
No, I mean, to everybody out there, get healthy. Get healthy. Make healthy choices in your life. My man Will is getting married in 2025. I'm sure you're gonna want to look great for all your photos. I'm gonna want to look great for all the photos for the weddings that I'm gonna be in. So let's all get healthy together. Let's hold each other accountable for healthy choices, and let's just be better versions of ourselves.
Love that. Healthy choices 2025. Here we come. Appreciate you, everybody out there listening. We will catch you guys later this week. Peace.
Missed free throw. Ford for the rebound. Here's Pritchard. He loves these. Puts it up half court of the buzzer.
Every time I get this high, I lose my mind. It don't take much no more until I hit the floor.